Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where it seems to be heating up and cooling down in this month of Amiga as we check out Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice, the daring adventures of cool Coyote, was developed by Graph Gold and published by Renegades in 1992. And as we can see today, we're checking out the CD32 version that was released in 1994. The main reason for this is just what I happen to have a copy of. Inside the case we find the CD and a small manual, which is interesting as it also talks about playing the game on not just the CD32 but any other CD equipped Amiga. Seeing that this was still relatively rare to connect a CD to your Amiga, this was very forward thinking. It also lets us know that we can play the game with up to jump or switch it to another button. Now in theory it should auto detect the controller, but if it doesn't you can change this in the menu. It also covers the story so far, as amazingly they didn't actually add an intro to this game, so let's just start it up. And we get this wonderfully jaunty bit of music as our hero sits there playing the piano. Why is he doing that? Well, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. Now this leads us on to the options screen, where we can change a few of the settings, like the controller options. So if you really wanted up to jump, you can do that. But you can also switch the music between the original mod soundtrack and the new CD soundtrack, which is a really nice touch. It also allows you to enable the trainer mode, that allows you to select one of the worlds to jump to so you can practice it. But let's leave that alone and then just jump straight into the game. And what we have here is a platformer in which we control the coolest of coyotes. And being so cool and being from the North Pole, we have the ability to fire ice pellets, obviously. These will freeze enemies, at which point touching them will result in them shattering. Which is quite the way to go really, isn't it? If you don't manage to get to them in time, they'll actually thaw out and continue with whatever they were doing, but it will take more pellets to freeze them the next time, so you better be quick. The goal of each level is to find the key parts that will open up the door. Now these can be found by taking down the meanies in the level. The trick is that each type of meanie has a bit of the key, but which one has it will be different on every single playthrough. So some monsters it's pretty easy to find the key, as there's not many of them, where others can be quite difficult. Like the seagulls and the skiers for example, these are a real pain as they move quickly and can be off the screen before you know it. And if they do go off screen, they will respawn if you return to the area, so you might have to keep coming back till you take them all down so you can find that key part. Once you do have the key, you can then make your way to the keyhole, which will open up to a door and let you go on to the next level. And for the most part this is your flow through the game. You take down monsters, you get key parts, and then you leave. Though there will be the odd level with bosses that will hide part or all of the key. There are also these hidden warps, and I do mean hidden. If you didn't know where they were, they are very easy to miss. Like this one on the 4th level. You get the question mark block to show, and then you just jump off it into the empty air and you're whisked away to the bonus level. Now this is actually a fun little level, as it has this animated water and these whales that you have to use to get around. Now there are a number of warps and bonus levels to find through the whole game. Starting on an icy level does have its ups and downs. It does mean we have these avalanches that can cause you issues, but are also pretty deadly to the monsters. But it also means it's all a little bit slippery, which isn't the greatest introduction world for a game. Now one of the options on the title screen was to select between the mod soundtrack and the CD music. And while the CD music does sound better on some levels, for me it sounds too much like a Christmas song in this one, where the original mod music suits the level so much more. And as we go through the rest of the worlds, I will try and give a mix of both of them. You get an idea which world and level you are on via the little map at the bottom of the screen, which has that funky rippling effect going on. But it also lets us know where we're heading next, which is Scotland. which starts us in the Highlands, where we have to deal with some new monsters, which includes these shielded warriors that you'll have to get behind as the ice pellets will just bounce off them. There's also these haggises that hide in trees and attack you at speed. Thankfully, you do actually have a bit of support on your side, as when you walk around the levels you might come across these little puppies, and if you get close to them they'll start following you, and these are useful in a number of ways. They help you with attacking as they also fire pellets, and they can also break frozen enemies. And if you happen to get them to an open door at the end of the level, then you'll even get an extra life, which is very handy as this game is a one hit and you're dead approach. So getting extra lives from puppies, the large bones, or hitting various score targets are essential in your mission, as this isn't the easiest of games. And it really starts to rampart up as we get to the castles, as you now have to deal with archers and these pits filled with porridge, which you'll have to try and find these hidden blocks for you to get over them. Now you might not think this at first glance, but you're actually timed on each of these levels. Now you may have noticed the gradient background change on occasion. This is actually indicating the day-night cycle. Now you get 7 days in total before things start to show up and trying to attack you. The backgrounds actually got some improvements over the original version. Not only is there an actual backdrop, which looks quite nice, but the gradients themselves were even made smoother, so there's this less banding going on. Overall, this game has a great use of colour, which is also shown in the next world, underwater. And with most platformers, that underwater level gives us slightly different controls. And once again we have a whole new range of critters to deal with. And in fact, each major world actually has their own set. But this is the first to introduce some that are neutral. We have these school of fishes that just swim around to add texture to the level, and there's those that will actually help us get around. Like the turtles that we can ride on the back of, which will also fire pellets just like the puppies when you're riding them, which actually makes up for the lack of them in these underwater levels, which they decided to drop as they couldn't get their AI to work properly underwater. Thankfully, one thing we don't have to worry about is running out of air, as our hero is sporting a nice mask and snorkel, so he can stay under there as much as he likes. It's one of those small touches like that that helps make this game stand out, as the sprite does change a number of times during the game. Unfortunately, it does seem that there are some of these annoying springs that require you to jump at just the right time to get any real height, though in this instance those springs are actually clams. Though if you're lucky, you'll also find one of these plants that give off this nice stream of bubbles, but every so often it will close and then release this big bubble that you can ride on. If you are wondering why we're actually off on this mission, well, for that we need to turn to the manual, which weirdly involves an intergalactic alien called Sutton escaping from a prison and making their way to Earth, where its fiery influence makes all the creatures on the planet get more aggressive. So to avoid a direct and solar system ending confrontation, Glem, an intergalactic bounty hunter, finds a coyote who just happens to be playing the piano in his igloo, and he decides to subtly push him into taking action. So that piano on the title screen and the igloo in the first level are actually the only in-game references to the story. And why pick a coyote in the first place? Well, the manual mentions that humans were just too stupid and clumsy and couldn't hero themselves out of a paper bag, which to be honest, seems about right. So as we continue our journey, we finally get out of the water and we find ourselves in a jungle. The path we seem to be taking across this world isn't the most direct route, I'll say that for him. But this world is the shortest so far, but does introduce a few new elements with monsters now attacking you from the background. There's also this volcano that launches flaming rocks at us. Nice. And while that key mechanic does mean that each playthrough will be unique, as we never know which meanie is going to give us the key, it can be quite a pain, as you might make it to the exit to find out that we've missed part of it and you have to work your way all the way back to the start to find that one respawning enemy that you might have missed. You are aided a little bit, as before each level you get the option of seeing this minimap, and as we can see the jungle ones are actually just these long, simpler designs, but some of the earlier ones have been far more complex. Interestingly, he wasn't always planned as a coyote. In earlier versions of the game he was actually a dog, which we get to see from some preview artwork from some of the magazine articles, with him having these big flappy ears, which were eventually replaced with a big flapping tail. Yes, that thing is a tail, it's not a set of wings as some people think. And you might also think that the look of the puppies is also different, but these designs actually made it into the original release of the game. It was actually for the AGA and CD32 version that they changed up the sprite so it looked more like our hero. And this is one of the many smaller changes that were made to the game, which also included having some more particle effects. And as we leave the jungle we arrive in an Incan temple. And we really start to feel the heat here, as the monsters are not staying frozen for very long. On top of that, they can also try to swarm you, which is a real pain as your pellets actually hit off the frozen monsters. But they can walk through each other, so you have to do this bit of a dance and hope that you can freeze multiple enemies at the same time and then quickly shatter them. There is thankfully some help in the form of power-ups. Now you can find some of them lying around, or you can also stumble across one of two ways to generate them. There are these poles that you can fire pellets into that will create power-ups, and sometimes might even give you snowflakes. There are also these question mark blocks. Now these are hidden until you hit them for the first time, at which point they'll wake up and give you more items the more you hit them. Or you can actually just leave them alone and use them as a platform to get to other areas. Now you can actually store a number of the same power-up at once, but if you pick up a different one it will replace the currently held one, and you end up triggering them with either holding down the fire button or using the yellow button on the CD32 controller. Now these powers range from scatter shots, to a small ice shield that will sparkle out in front of you, you can bark, or you can even send out larger pellets that will freeze anything it touches. There are actually quite a number of them for you to find and try out. But it's not the only thing that will help you, as you also have the snow bombs. These can be collected by charging up the clouds that you will find, and if you get them just right, they'll start snowing. But overcharge the clouds and they'll become darker and heavier, and start thundering and lightning, and if you get caught by it, it will kill you. You can collect the snow and then use them as the game's smart bomb. Setting these off will freeze everything on the screen, which is great for dealing with those larger groups. And the CD32 version also added this giant snowflake on the screen to really hammer home the effect. These levels are far more about the platform puzzling elements than most that we've seen so far, as we have some switches as well as time jumps to deal with. But once you finish the level you'll end up in a very weird place. The floating islands. This is actually a bit of a respite area, and it's a chance for us to stock up on our lives and power-ups. Yeah, you can guess what's coming up next. Though thankfully on this level the meanies won't actually hurt you at all, but they will go around trying to eat the pickups, so you have to be fast if you want to grab them first. They also seem to be based on previous graph roll games, which is a real neat touch. But once you've gotten your fill of it, it's time to fall off the islands and head into the last world and level, Egypt. Where the heat is really turned up to full, and monsters will literally be made of fire and will take a lot of work to freeze. This is a bit of a gauntlet, with enemies jumping out from all sides, though thankfully you don't really have to deal with them as they don't have any key parts. this time the only real goal is to make it to the last chamber and take on the boss. Now, one area where the CD32 and the original game differ is when you actually complete the game. As when you finish the original game, it places you in this eyeball-hurting animated playground of a level that you can go out and explore and get the final credits. Where the CD32 version got this far more relaxing look of inside of the cool Coyote's igloo, where you get to explore it and spot a bunch of those little puppies all around. There were a few ports of the game, which included this decent enough effort for the Atari ST, it's a bit slower, and there's these extra borders that reduce the screen size, but it was actually the first version of the game that I played. And the music isn't terrible, but it's not amazing either. The DOS version also seems to be a decent enough attempt. It doesn't have the copper background, so they had to rework them with mostly static ones instead, but interestingly it does have the updated puppy artwork. I'm not sure if this came before or after the CD32 edition, but it is quite nice to see. And while it would have been cool if they used the mod player to play the original soundtrack, the FM one isn't too bad. Possibly the worst port was to the Master System. It was really only released in Brazil by Tectoy, and it really doesn't play all that great. Looks wise, it's not too bad considering it's an 8-bit machine, and those sprites are a bit small, but the movement is all off and the music is quite annoying. And as it was quite popular at the time, there was also an Acorn Archimedes port, which seems to suffer from similar problems of other Amiga ports to the Acorn Archimedes. The music doesn't quite sound right, feeling like it's playing just a little bit too fast, which can also be said of the gameplay. There was also a number of ports that were worked on but never released. This included a Game Gear version that was done and even reviewed, but as far as I can tell it never hit the stores. I assume that this was the basis of the Master System version that was released a few years later, but who knows. This wasn't the only missing Sega port, as based on a blog post by the game's developer, a Mega Drive version was also produced but never released, though I do wonder if he got it mixed up with the previously mentioned Game Gear one. The Amiga wasn't left out of this either, as there was a 1200 version that was worked on. And while this never got directly released, as you might have guessed, it provided the groundwork for the CD32 version. During its development, they did actually look at trying to make the game run at a full 50 frames per second, but having to tweak the settings on every single moving object meant it would take far too long. Which is a shame, as I think the game would have shined even more at a smoother frame rate. Now, the game itself never got a sequel, but it did get a unique demo, which was known as the Fire and Ice Christmas Special Edition. It only had one level, which seems to be an extended version of one of the bonus levels, but it did include updated artwork of our little friend sporting a nice little Christmas hat. I always think it's nice when a demo includes something unique that makes it worth playing even if you played the full game. This really is a fun little platformer, and I always find something new each time I play because they put so much small detail into it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about the game as well. So until next time, I've been the Goldfish, that was the coolest Coyote, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching my video, I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can let me know down in the comments, or you can use those buttons just below, you know the ones I mean. Or if you're not sure yet, then you can check out 2 other videos that I've done that are on the screen right now. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.